allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first thing we had on the agenda was the drought regulation recommendations, but the WAC meeting was canceled, so we'll hold off on that one. So we'll go to the WQI grants application. You guys are working on those this morning.
I'm going to recuse myself from this one because
Okay.
they helped them with their application process before I got here.
Okay.
I can speak to that. Excuse me. We had, just trying to find an application. In years past, probably pre-COVID for the most part, we haven't had as many grant applications lately, a few here and there. We used to, once WQI approved them, we would send them to the town board and then at a work session, just say, you know, if there was anything special about the application, one of the liaisons would mention what, you know, if there was any concerns, issues. This one doesn't have any, so unless somebody has a question on what was sent around to the town board.
What would be like an example of an issue?
If someone is, if they're doing something that someone thinks that, okay, this should be a mandatory installation, why are we funding a mandatory installation? And so it's a first-time home buyer or someone's doing something for affordable housing. So it would be some sort of something like slightly special and out of the norm that we just want to, you know, make everyone aware of.
Okay.
So on this one, there isn't really anything to highlight. You know, it met all the criteria that WQI approved passing it along to us. The only thing we did sit down, a couple of us sat down with Coco this morning just because she's new to as the clerk for that position and went through the procedures and things that she needs to do. And as we stepped through the process with her, Dottie, we want to just review the resolution that you draft up for this, because I think we want to put something in there that highlights in the resolution that the resolution isn't complete until they return the rebate agreement to us. And so we'll get you the exact wording and line that needs to go in there, because I know in the past, and Coco was aware of this, sometimes those rebate agreements weren't coming back to us because they get the resolution from the town clerk's office and know the board took action on it. Don't realize that they need to sign this application because it has, you know, just the parameters of what they're agreeing to of the contract with the town, that, you know, they can't do construction within the next 3 years if it would have been construction that pushed them into having to do a mandatory upgrade and installation, which would then not be funded by the town. And then they would have to give back the funds on that. So we just want to make sure that that's in there. So we'll get that for you for this one for the July 1st.
Okay, that's no problem.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah. So they're going to be 6,000 base plus well location set aside 2,000. So they're going to be, we're going to put it in for an $8,000 total.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? If not, Meg can come back. Right. Before we move on to the next one, Meg, I guess I'll ask you, how are we with our grant applications? Receiving them, processing them?
At the county level?
No, us here at the town. You know, how's it going?
I don't know.
We need to just update spreadsheets, but she's gotten things organized. And so she's got everything into, you know, completed file, pending file. So just in the transfer.
Oh, but you had mentioned this is the first one we've had in a while.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I think part of it is we did get, you know, a whole slew. So I think the low hanging fruit people were, came forward. So at some point we may need to turn our attention to, you know, beating the ground or starting to, you know, talk about
Informational. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think part of it too is a delay at the county level. So the county was very, very backed up during COVID, and they actually ran out of money for a period of time. So there was a period of time where they weren't issuing grants. So a prerequisite for the town grant is that you apply for the county and state grant. And most people want to know that they have actually received all of the grants before they do any of the installation work to know financially where they stand. So I think a lot of that is just a backup of all of the paperwork aspect of the process.
Tax thing is holding some.
And the tax thing,
Yeah, that was
the
the next
1099 issue is definitely holding things up for some people.
Yeah, and I thought Swazi and somebody else were trying to work at it at the federal level, but then also the county was going to work part of the, like making not just a watershed.
Well, so there's a few things that were going on. There was a possible resolution for the 1099 issue in one of the infrastructure bills that didn't pass.
Right.
So they were trying to resolve it that way. And then the other thing that the county is working on doing is the countywide wastewater management district, which would also resolve the problem, but that got cut in the budget at the state level. So it didn't make it on the ballot this year. So maybe next year they're looking to do it again. So those are some of the possible ways of resolving the 1099 issue. But that's also holding some people up.
And the making thing that, a district would then take away that it's just a benefit for that particular homeowner, which is what the 1099 is getting issued for, is you just got an upgrade to your property and it's a benefit to you. If we can do this, district countywide, then it's a benefit for the entire district, and that takes away the rationale.
Which is how the program was originally designed.
It's based off like
Right. It's an improvement for the entire
Watershed.
district, the entire Suffolk County. So that's kind of in the works. But there has been an influx of installations going on. But a lot of them are new construction or major renovations of homes. So they're putting in IA systems, but they're not getting grants because or at least the town grant, they don't qualify from all the sales that happened during COVID. So all the turnover and people went and did renovations and they've triggered upgrades, but not upgrades that qualify for town grant money.
But do we have a feel for how many we're waiting for? Or how many applicants are waiting for county approval?
that I don't know. But we'll have a
I don't know
better.
how we would know that. How would we?
You'd have to ask.
Oh, you mean
But-
they haven't filled out here yet?
Well,
They're waiting?
there are some people who wait to get county and state approval before they apply to the
Oh,
town.
okay, right.
Because the town approval process is so much faster than the
Right.
county and state process. I mean, I have about,
For the county and state, would you say on an average, it's like 4 to 6 months,
no,
longer?
yeah. And it depends on where you stand in the,
District type thing?
your ranking, your priority ranking.
Yeah.
So if you're an emergency failure on the water,
Yeah.
then you jump to the top of the queue.
Didn't we try to make Shelter Island the top of the queue?
Yeah,
because-
so I had to go back and talk with the health department because I don't know that that's trickled down to the actual people who are reviewing applications.
Mhm.
So I was supposed to meet with them this past week, but that got canceled. So it's next week now. So
Okay.
I'll come back to you with
Good.
some answers on that.
Okay.
That's where I stand with
Last
that.
question I had, I know we asked this every 4 or 5 months or so. We had to make a guesstimate Meg,
Uh-huh.
on the number of IA systems that are been installed thus far on Shelter Island by either you guys or other companies. What would you best guess?
I would say 150, 175.
150, 175?
Yeah.
And that's not enough.
And, but there's easily 200 pending.
And I'll-
100 additional.
200 additional pending. Well, they're in different stages of review, either at the county for engineering approval or at the grant stage for grants approval. There's always a queue.
And I'll remind everybody, our wastewater project in the center is the equivalent of up to 150 IA systems.
That would match all the efforts that have gone on in the first 3 to 4 years, at least, right there. So that's a very.
I mean, that's a rough estimate. It doesn't necessarily take into account, the Pridwin put in a significant system.
Yep.
There's all the restaurants, the new construction's all
Yes.
doing it. And a lot of these major renovations have turned over new systems. So I wouldn't know those through the grant process because they're independent of that.
Right.
So the health department could give you a better number on what's actually been installed on the island. And that would cover all technologies.
What's the
Good to know.
Yeah, what's the magical number of if we were at 100% here on the island? How many homeowners are we talking? 800 or more than we're talking more than that?
If we did every property on the
Yeah.
island, it's like 2,700 homes, right?
Okay.
And I think we've encumbered like 90 plus some grants since we started the program in 2017. I have to double check my 2021 number, but we
So
did.
the town has encumbered 90?
Mhm. We did 7 in 2017, we did 20 in 2018, 25, 17, and then last year I think it's about 18, but I have to double check that number. It's been longer since I updated my spreadsheet than I thought. I double checked my spreadsheet. I update it, but sometimes.
All right, good. Good information. Okay, next on the list, we have the Emergency Services Dock. This is the new dock at Volunteer Park. I asked Bo Payne and Chief to join us on this to explain the use of the dock and who's has access to it. Just lost Bo. Whatever, there he is.
Yeah, Bo, is your audible working?
Was that?
Yeah, go ahead, Bo. You can lead off and I'll follow up.
Oh, yeah. No, so as we probably all know, we just recently completed the, I guess, third installment, if you will, of a series of new docks intended to be used for the police boat, fire boat, and emergency medical services as may be needed. Yep, the chief's displaying right now the newest one, which is that new float off of the northeast corner of Volunteer Park down on Bridge Street. As you can see, the fireboat's already made itself a happy little home there. Not too far from where it used to be, just over there at the end of Jack's dock. So this is this particular dock was, if you'll recall, a joint effort between the district and the town. We started this late last year, I guess it was, and got it executed pretty quickly and got everything squared away with DEC, got it all approved and got it in. I think right around Memorial Day, this one went in. As I mentioned, that'll be, Chief, you dropped that?
Yep, I'm just bringing it back up because I want to go.
Yep. As I mentioned, that'll be or is intended to be the permanent home for the fireboat moving forward, and then serve as an alternate location for either of the two police boats as conditions or events might warrant having that. As you can see there, we've already got a little bit of signage there, which sort of leads into the conversation for today, which is we want to try and get something in town code to protect the town and honestly the official uses of the dock to ensure that it remains available all the time and therefore restrict unofficial or unauthorized use of these three docks moving forward. Right now, the town code only addresses town docks as it relates to like transient use, limiting it to 2 hours at certain docks or the enumerated docks. So we would like to work with Stephen to draft some language to just add a section at the end of the current dock code that would address unauthorized use of these docks moving forward, and stipulate obviously what unauthorized use would be and what ramifications there would be. I would assume something similar to other consequences that would be found in town code, town summons specifically. This is our
Congdon Creek dock.
what's that?
What's the status of the Congdon Creek?
It's all done. We're gonna
expansion?
get, oh, there you go. Chief's got that up right now. So that was step 2. We'll go back to step 1 in a second. That was up right before you asked the question there. So this is out at the easternmost end of the town dock at Congdon's Creek. We just added a little T to the very end, and now that is a permanent home for Marine 12, or 24-foot patrol boat. Since this photo was taken this morning, we've actually added stanchions to the essentially the new portion there. This short little part right in front of you. Yep, that has a chain across it now, and we've ordered the same signs as the ones that you just saw down at Volunteer Park. Official use only, no docking, et cetera. So that is the one down at Connett's Creek, which was the second in the installation of the series here.
So, Bo, with all of these, you have to put signage facing the water too, right?
Yeah, Chief, if you can go back to the one at Volunteer Park. Yeah, so if you look carefully at the top of the pilings there, you can't see it, see the language, obviously. But the other side of those says, it looks just like a no parking sign, same size as a no parking sign. It says no docking, official use only. And so we just wanted to kind of keep that language similar across the signs there. And moving forward, that's what we would be looking to do, specifically that type of language in the town code, that this is for official use only or authorized use only. Obviously, emergency situations would qualify as an authorized use.
So you would basically want to put some teeth in the town code to anyone who uses that, other than in an emergency situation, and then just make it crystal clear in the code that this is for emergency services use only, right?
Right, and Stephen, thank you for kind of bringing us back to that. The intent is that this always remains open and available for the use that is intended for. While it might seem innocuous enough for somebody to be fishing there or tie up their kayaks there for a little bit or launch kayaks, I'm sure we've all seen an emergency situation unfolding, and there's vehicles and personnel and equipment coming and going in a bunch of different directions, and that's not the time to be trying to sort out where we now need to move some other person's kayak or get some kids off the dock from snapper fishing or something like that. So we just want to try to make it clear. I mean, these are beautiful town assets, and I don't blame anybody for wanting to try and take advantage of using them. But that is not the intended purpose for these.
Correct. And I think I would speak for, hopefully for everybody, I think we'd be 100% behind that effort. I love the fact that where the three of them are located now. I think the island is pretty well covered. So during an emergency, we can get to the place we need to in the least amount of time. And when you mentioned, unauthorized use and consequences, I guess we have any idea. I guess we could look to other towns where they have similar type of situations. What type of consequences and fines would there be for somebody who illegally ties up? Is there a warning? Do we go right away with the first offense? Is there a second offense? That kind of thing. Is that what we're looking to do here, guys?
Jim, I think we were really just trying to give the board a heads up. We'll work with Stephen Kiley, on the town attorney, on developing the code a little bit, and then we'll come back to you for final approval. So we'll have better direction then. The other part of why I wanted to get on board today was one, to thank the board. Hey, look, we are a professional operation, and we've become more professional by having these three assets for our Bay Constables. When you look at all three of them, they're in really good shape now. They're there for emergency purposes, and we want to protect our assets with some code regulations. The reality for us is we hope not to have to ever use them, but if we need to remove a boat that's in blocking an emergency access, we're going to have the law and the capability to do that. The second thing that I wanted to bring up, I'm just going to share my screen one more time, is we also made a little bit of a change this year. And largely this is due to Bo and Butch. We now have the ability to fuel our own vessels at a reduced rate. So this morning I went down when Butch was fueling up Marine 12. We have a onboard gas storage in our truck, and now we can fuel the vessels. I mean, it's probably done at half the price of what we were doing before. We had to lay out some money, just like we laid out some money on the docks initially. But what it does is over time, we're going to recoup those costs by not paying for dockage, and we'll also have significant fuel savings as time plays out. We may not realize them this year because fuel has gone up significantly, but we would have been paying much more had we not made these changes. So, I wanted to thank the board for understanding our needs and rectifying some situations that make us a much more professional operation and enhances the safety of both the Bay Constables and the community.
And Chief, I just want to interject that we didn't buy that truck. That was a repurposed truck for the Marine Division.
Chief, would there be any sense to making this ban on dock usage timed? Like, is there a point in the year where you just pull your boats and they won't be using it, but the random, recreational boater might still be out there, or fisherman?
I probably wouldn't be overly keen on that unless in long term. It just has a way of people not knowing when it starts and when it stops, and we'll have a need for it in an emergency and it's not there. I just think that there's small areas, there's small platforms, and I'd rather see it right now be left that way. I'm not opposed to looking at it in the future, but right now, as we get sorted out, I think it's in our best interest not to do that. It's not to say that somebody, any docking or any port in a storm, we're not saying that, BJ. We understand emergency needs. And
I would submit that it's kind of similar to like fire zone parking regulations and fire hydrant parking regulations. That's sort of what we're trying to parallel here, if you can kind of connect those two dots.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And Chief, the other thing we might want to speak to is the fact that we were offered free dockage at Jack's Marine for both the fireboat and the police boat, but you and I discussed it, and we felt that it'd be better off in the long run.
Right. Yeah. So it's independent of anybody at any time. It keeps our operation much cleaner if we can, we have a volunteer park there. It's a great location. We parallel the offered space, but as a municipality, it makes a lot of sense for us to remain independent of any one group or persons.
Yep.
Good.
Sounds good.
Hey, Bo, while you're on, Joe and I saw Peter Vielbig this morning, and we'd like to take do a shift with you around the island one day, just to get a feel for everything from the water side. Okay.
Let me know when.
Okay. Anything else on this one?
No, just one little thing, since we went down to Condon Dock about the fixing up of the dock, and I think Brian is talking about full parking. So I just want to make sure that it's
For the bulkhead.
For the bulkhead. I just want to make sure it's still on the radar, that we bid it out, so that when the boats pull out of there late September, early October, by mid-October, we're all set, ready to go, and we're not hunkered down by.
I know we had budgeted for it last year.
Yeah.
And then we had the emergency at Dawn Lane that we had to handle.
Right.
And we budgeted this year for it. And I guess there was a change with the DEC that wanted an upgraded application because wetlands or something.
Yeah, they need
But
to
I know that
reflag.
it's all in, the process is going on.
Yeah.
And you have to make sure we put it out to bid.
Yeah, just that we continue to go on it, because the shellfish men have talked a lot about that. I've got a number of inquiries about, you promised this was going to be done, you promised this was going to be done, and we should try, if at all possible, to get that done, because that is not in good shape.
Yeah, I think what happened was Brian had submitted the application and the DEC came back and said they wanted them to reflag the wetlands because it had aged out or whatever it was. And so then he had that done and then had to resubmit. So it's, DEC is a process.
Mhm. Okay, moving on. Again, on the original agenda, we had 73 North Cartwright. This is an unsafe structure, but we're not ready to get a final report from the building department on that yet. So we will move to the next one, which is building department fees. We had this, I'd come in and we discussed this a little bit, that it's time to address the fees. We've been doing this townwide with all our user fees to try to take things off the tax base and use them directly where they're coming from. So Reed, you want to walk us through this quick?
Sure. I had passed around a list with proposed and current. I don't know if anybody had any questions or felt that any.
Could we just do it page by page?
Sure.
So just page one. Our first question is on driveways in the nearshore area.
Nope. First question is decks. I've got a question on
Why
decks.
don't we just go line by line?
Yeah.
Okay,
When you start jumping around, people get confused.
Yeah.
well, it's just, that's why I broke it down, girls, to ladies, to a page.
Christina, do you have it? You want to put it on the
To a
screen?
page.
No?
So that I didn't think it was too confusing if we just stayed with page one, but that's okay. We can go, any way you want. Alphabetically.
So any comments on cisterns?
Cisterns.
All right, I have a comment on decks.
Sure.
Just proposed fee, resurface 150 for the first 500 plus.
In other words, plus 70, both of them were, I'm sorry, it was, the idea was resurface was 150 for the first 500 square feet plus 75 for each.
Oh, so just like below. Okay, thank you.
175 for what?
75 cents?
Cents for each.
75 cents for each additional square foot.
Thanks, Reed. All right.
Any questions on, anything else on that?
Fences.
All right, we'll get to driveways in the inshore area.
Driveways and aprons, that one, that's changed.
Just a second, Christine, I think that's an older one that you have because it starts off with answer system,
Yeah,
whereas the one we're looking at has cistern, starts with cisterns.
I think I emailed it
Just took the one that was.
she's got it. So yeah, driveways and aprons, no more near shore. It's just driveways and aprons.
Yes.
Not on this one.
We just have driveways and aprons.
Yeah, not near shore.
I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
What do you have?
This is
I have an extra copy.
It's
What
just,
I just handed out should be.
What do you have on driveways?
Yeah.
Driveways and aprons or driveways and aprons?
Driveways and aprons.
Okay, and I had the other one, okay.
That
But
reflects.
it's still 100 to 250, and my question was on driveways, is this regardless of the surface that's used?
Well, driveways and aprons is a little bit complicated. It's actually a couple different things. Traditionally, driveways were just permit where for driveways in the near shore overlay. The only place you're required to have a permit is in the near shore overlay for a driveway.
Because it has to be permeable.
Because they have to be permeable, and if they're not permeable, then we need to get
Drainage.
like a proposal with calculations for drainage and sizing of the drains and and those dry wells and all that.
Okay.
It's been there's a new thing now, which is aprons, and because aprons were added at the request that's across the board, across the island.
Mhm.
That's for the highway department. And that's a little bit more elaborate because the way it works is that Brian sends someone, usually Dave Clark, over to me to explain the situation. And then they actually, we take the permit, but they're the ones that actually do the enforcement. It's a couple inspections, it's resources. And with all of these, there's also, the fact that Mary Ellen has to or someone now has to process the paperwork, and it's one of those things.
So really the aprons is the reason we're not just
The aprons is the
near
primary.
shore.
Basically, what we were doing is the review process and the inspection wasn't really covered by the
Right.
$500. We're trying to bring it up to something closer to what.
Did you, just out of curiosity, does he ever have a concern about people that put boulders or stone structures or other kinds of things on town property in the driveway area? Because I know where the plow, that's one thing if you have it set back 5 to 6 feet. It's another thing if you actually have it right to the road, the plow's coming down and in heavy snow, you may not even see it. And,
Right.
and people put these fairly substantial sized boulders, there.
It's not even the bollards. I think that's why Brian does the inspection,
Yeah,
because the
right.
apron
That's
is elevated.
Okay,
Yeah, we were having.
right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, as is often the case, there was one specific incident, which was that we had a new driveway contractor who used to work for another driveway contractor and went out on his own, and he was cutting them into the road, actually. I think down on Simpson Road, number 1 or number 2
Yeah.
Simpson. He cut it about a foot into the road, which, you know, it's destructive as far as the town equipment goes, because if a snowplow hits it, you know, it causes some damage. And that was really what led to this.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Why don't we charge for fences on the permits?
We don't have fence permits, and that's why we tried for a while and then it was removed. That was one of the ones I wanted to discuss with you. I don't know. One of the things that we have more trouble with are fences.
Yes.
I would say there are a couple things that disproportionate amount of our resources are spent on fences, sheds, and there was a move to require permits on fences, and then Chris didn't like it for some reason and removed it. And now it is an ongoing problem. We've had like 5 in the last, I would say 6 months, where people have put fences on neighbors' property, or there's one where the gentleman down on Fox Hollow, the one across the street, anyway, Whale Run, actually put up his fence on a rather large section of town property, incorporating it into his yard. We're trying to avoid stuff like that.
How do you find out about it? No permit.
We got a complaint from somebody who's, I think, having a dispute with the neighbor. It's usually how we find out.
So with the fences, the more complaints or the more problems or with the location or the height?
Both.
Both, but obviously location is more of an issue.
Yeah.
So height also is, I mean, in the Silver Beach area, a number of people, we've had a bunch of them that have put 6-foot fences right down to the road.
Yeah.
You know, on corners.
Yes.
And you're not allowed to have a 6-foot fence there. Some people put an 8-foot fence in, you know, to keep the deer out, because it's not a traditional fence, it's a wired fence that you can kind of see through. But so the best thing about requiring the permit is to educate and prevent this, you know.
It makes it so that we don't only find out about it.
Right.
Correct.
When there's a problem.
And also the idea is, even if it's, you know, a nominal fee,
Yes.
we can tell them what's allowed. And it
Right.
does get confusing because it's hard for a lot of people to understand what it means that you can't have a 6-foot fence within the front yard setback.
Right.
Yep. That goes back.
So will you require a survey if we go to permit?
Oh, yeah. That would be,
Absolutely, you would need to.
yeah, I guess we would need a survey.
That's how you would confirm whether it's on your property or neighbor's property.
So when you get an application for a pool with the survey and the pool and the fence is on that survey, that's because it's a state mandate, a pool fence, right?
I'm sure.
In other words, just what we're saying, except for the permit part of the fence, when someone is applying for a building permit for a pool,
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah,
have to include the fence on the property where it's going and
right.
the survey.
Yes. In other words, that's just an inherent part of the pool.
Right.
So a pool fence is somewhat different.
Yeah.
But to address your question, I would say that in a lot of cases, we don't want to require someone to get a survey if they don't have to. In a lot of cases, if there are markers there, or if there's any way that we can extrapolate, no, you don't have to.
No, because there's too much room for human error in that, and you're not trained surveyors.
No, but in other words, if they're property markers, we can cite it.
Yeah, I don't know, that's eyeball.
Does it have to be a new survey, I guess is the question. Can they use an older survey if there's been no lot line adjustments? Just to delineate where the fence is going. Yeah.
I mean, we're not obvious, you know, but in a lot of cases, we do on everything. If we can take some measurement that's on an existing survey, if there is an existing survey, that's what I'm talking about. Or if the property's been surveyed and there are property markers, monuments or something, and we can verify it, we do with.
Oh, yeah, yeah, so I was unclear if the surveyor was hired to put the markers out, but then again, you don't know if they were moved after the period of time that the surveyor was out there. So that's why I think it's important to have a survey. And so you have it in the file exactly where the fence is gonna be, whether it's drawn
Yeah.
to an existing survey or a new survey is required.
I mean, I would say like with a lot of things, I think if we can be reasonably sure without requiring that, because the survey at this point is $3,500.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't necessarily be a new survey, but if they have an
Yeah,
existing survey of the property
Right.
from when they purchased it, they
Yeah.
could draw in where the fence is going, and then you have a reference that you
Yes.
can confirm
Yeah,
in the field.
a lot of times, there'll be things on the property, and we use this all the time to measure, if the pool is called out on the survey and it's different, the distance from the property line is called out, we can use that, to somewhat.
I would love to get us back onto the agenda because this is a very topic issue that
Yeah.
the public should be advised of if we're going to talk about fences generally. So we're just talking about fees at this
Good point.
So anyway, we were talking about, adding fences and having a fee of some sort, possibly.
point.
$50 or something.
Definitely advice.
Even 50, just so people do it. Fireplaces, wood stoves, $50. Sprinkler system, that was just, we never had, for commercial sprinkler system, or we never had a fee for that.
That's a fairly involved process.
It's a pretty involved thing, and it really is often done as a separate permit. It didn't used to be, but because they become logistically so much more particular, generally it's a separate contractor who does it as part of a separate contract.
Mhm.
And it just seemed like it made sense to pull it out
Yeah.
because we don't know what to charge.
Is that going to cover it? Because they are more complicated. Are you going to have a third party do, because I know like for some of the bigger commercial projects you were talking about.
Yeah, I mean,
having-
we have a third-party inspection. We just review it and make sure that the whole process is being.
Okay, so that would.
Third party inspection, the applicant pays for that.
More.
Well, usually it's usually done, it's kind of a plausible deniability issue. It's usually done.
So-
The inspector is, like with many electrical inspections, the inspector is actually brought in by the contractor. But they have a license to lose, so the idea is that they're not going to risk that doing so.
In the foundations, what is EEC?
Estimated cost of construction. In other words, for that, we assume an estimated cost of construction of $40 per square foot for a new foundation. We'd like to bump that up 25% to $50 per square foot. Still seems, and then it's the same rate that we charge for everything, which is $4.50 per 1,000
Square feet.
square foot. Yeah. Well, yeah, square foot. Yes, $1,000. And actually, I'm sorry. That's a mistake. It's $4.50 per $1,000 of estimated cost of construction. Sorry about that.
$1,000, okay.
Basically, if you multiply the total estimated cost of construction by 0.0045, you end up getting the permit fee.
I feel like we need that formula on here somewhere because people are going to look at it and get very confused.
Yeah.
So is that,
We have it, it's a little more called out, I think, in the single family dwellings.
so that's per 1,000 feet of the foundation cost of the whole project?
$1,000.
$1,000 of the whole project or just the foundation?
Well, that would just be, in other words, that's not for
Right.
projects. That's for if you're putting a foundation under an existing building,
Okay.
which we do see a lot of these days. People are taking a lot of old beat up buildings. In fact, could happen right next door from them.
So on $10,000 new foundation, it would be $450.
No,
No,
it would be $45, right?
$45 on
Yeah.
10,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no such thing as a $10,000 foundation, just saying.
Well,
Right.
It used to be.
It used to be, yeah.
Yeah, it would be $45 for 10,000.
Yeah,
So,
But that just says minimum 250 though.
yeah.
Yes.
so Reed, on the next one on the garages, yeah, you're proposing the minimum 250, but we didn't have a minimum on that one?
In the garages, that's a good question. I think maybe we did. I think maybe that got,
Okay, so probably the same as the other one.
Okay.
Okay,
I think it may have been 150.
Yeah.
yeah.
Let me check that. Generators, hot tubs, $200 seems closer to what the amount of time spent.
Multiple dwellings on the next category. Do you mean multiple family dwellings?
Multiple dwellings, I mean, that's just, it's basically anything that's not covered by the residential code.
Okay.
That's kind of the.
So would that be like the cottages?
Yeah, in other words, say Binder's
Yeah,
thing on Manwaring Road.
cards, cabins.
Cards, cabins, those would all be multiple, because they really are, they fall under a different category
Right.
of building code.
Can we define, or should we define large commercial project? In that multiple dwellings, you say, ICC third-party review, owner's expense for large commercial projects.
Well, we could, or, I
I
mean,
don't know how you would,
I think
but
that's
I don't
kind of
know.
user discretion. I mean, if it's something
Okay.
that's above and beyond their
normal,
scope of practice,
Yeah.
and they don't feel comfortable reviewing it because they don't have the proper knowledge base, then they would refer.
Right.
to them.
yeah, I mean,
Does that
we're
open
not
up the door though for someone saying,
it's not large, you're going to cost me all this extra money, what's large? You know what I'm saying? Would you?
No, I totally get that, but
Yeah.
the category is so broad. It's multiple dwellings, hotels, motels, clubs.
Any
Business
commercial,
building, including wineries, so how would you really define that?
it's basically any commercial or multiple family.
Right,
In reality, we have very few multiple developments.
yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
here. It's just, it's more the category of the building code that oversees it. Use that as the dividing line.
So wait, so you want to charge any commercial or multiple dwelling that, so
Increase these 20%, these fees,
these fees are up by 20%.
right?
With ICC third-party review at owner's expense. So what would be the trigger for that? You're saying if it's any commercial.
If it's something that we.
I know, I just want to clarify.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how we could define it.
No, but you can say all commercial, right?
But
Well, we
you
don't
don't,
want to do all.
you don't want to do retail,
That you can handle.
There are plenty of commercial that we can have.
like fees, for example.
But in reality, I think we should be covered on the ones that are a little bit beyond.
Oh, yeah.
expertise, like the Pridwin and the Cheapwood those are we do so few of them
Yeah,
that every time we do one, it's like starting from scratch.
Mhm.
So you're increasing so for example, first floor, $210 a square foot, you're upping that by 20%. So it'd be $252 a square
And
foot?
I'm sorry, and that's supposed to be $225 for this. No, I'm sorry, $125, that's right. No, in other words, we figure that we estimate the cost of construction at $210 a square foot, which is pretty low.
Yeah, it is.
yeah.
We estimate, and that's for the first floor, because the first floor presumably includes a foundation.
Right.
For the second floor, we figure it's $125 a square foot. From that, we figure out how many square feet of first floor and how many square feet of subsequent floors. We come up with a total estimated cost of construction, supposing it's $500,000. So we would then take $500,000 and multiply it at a rate of $4.50 per 1,000 square feet, so you just multiply it times 0.045,
Mhm.
which somebody else can do.
We got it.
Yeah.
Then you multiply that by 20%.
To come up with the increase.
No, well, in other words, we would say, what we would do probably there is we would just multiply the estimated cost of construction per square foot by the 20%.
Okay, so we're going to increase the EEC by.
Which is probably not even what
Yes,
have gone up.
right.
So $2,250 for a $500,000.
Yes, that sounds about right.
Then it goes from 2250
So then-
to 2700.
Yeah.
Right, because then you have to add the 20%.
So Reed, this kind of goes along with the fence discussion, probably not for right now, but with the third party review at owner's expense. Is it the owner's reviewer or is it?
Well, that's for
somebody
one
else?
section of, in other words, that's for the plan review.
Yeah.
That's just for the plan. So
You bring somebody in
we
or?
would send it to the International Codes Council.
Okay.
And they would do the review. That's generally how it's
Okay.
done.
And what's the fee generally for something?
It depends, again, it depends on the scope of the project.
But that's passed on to the applicant.
No, absolutely. So it just,
I mean,
it's a discussion, we have to determine a trigger.
For example, I think Chris looked at, he was gonna send it out, the grid went out to it. And how much did we, I know that's 13, they're saying $13 million.
Oh, I've heard higher. I've heard 15 to 17.
Yeah, it looked more to me like,
Yeah,
frankly, 25
yeah.
or so.
Well, I talked to the guys directly, it was 12 to 15 is what.
Oh, well,
Yeah, I think it's probably realistically,
I don't think
but
that,
anyway, that's,
yeah.
but my point is this, so on a job like that, I think it was about $7,000 for the review. So it sounds like a lot of money until you think about the scope of the job.
Right.
Then it's really a problem.
Okay.
Okay.
And like in the past year, we've had more than in any other time since I've been here, and we had 2 that would have been bumped up. So,
Okay.
Okay.
pool renovations.
Straightforward.
Again,
Mhm.
that's a significant bump up in terms of percentage, but it's, in terms of how much time we
Right.
spend dealing with retaining walls.
Are you sure that's enough?
Yeah, especially rethink that.
Some of them are more complicated than others.
Relocation of building, that was another one that was kind of ridiculously low. Still is, but we don't get a lot of them.
Yeah.
Renewal expired, that would be the same.
How long is a building permit good for?
It's good for 2 years.
2 years? So if I had a building permit and I'm like 8 years after the fact, can I renew it or you have to start?
After 8 years, you would pay full price.
Right.
But we would, if you had it already, we would just charge you the same.
Yeah.
Same amount. Revision to permits. That's just,
Yeah, I would like that to talk about the changes made without building department being notified.
yeah, that's kind of
That's kind of low.
yeah.
I don't know. I would go to 500. I mean, I just think that, what is that saying? Beg for forgiveness,
It's easier to beg for forgiveness, yes.
for permission. I really would like people to ask for permission. I would, and for it to be uncomfortable if they don't.
Yeah.
Now, is that, I mean, I don't want to be
I have
the
a-
only hard case up here.
I have the tendency to agree with that because it puts more onus on them from the onset to do it right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
fine with that.
Yeah.
It can, sometimes you feel like it's
You're talking about changes made before notifying.
No, changes made without building department notification.
I don't see that.
So there's
Oh, this one.
two.
It's literally.
Yeah.
In other words, we charge, if somebody says we want to change the plans, we charge for that because
It's
sometimes
more.
it's an ongoing thing. And it is a fair amount of work to have to go.
Well, I think it's twofold to go with BJ and Jim is saying. One, yeah, it's the cost of you doing it, but 2, there should be a penalty factor in it.
Yes, and that's what in other words, it's the difference between 100, what we're proposing is it's an extra $175.
I think it should be like 5.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would say 625.
Because the building without a building permit is
Yeah.
whacked 5 times. building permit.
And it's, I mean, it really opened my eyes with the real estate market in the past 2 years, all the phone calls of, well, I need a CO and, you know, they didn't mean to not get it, but they can't sell the house now because they don't have it, so.
Because they redid their basement with it. Yeah, no, it's, you know, yeah. I mean, it's the ones like that, like ones where they've really done illegal, say renovation basement. That's where we hit them with it 5 times. This is for if something mid-process, we get there and we're like, wait, what's going on here? And they're like, oh, we changed it. Didn't you get the plans? Or we, you know, that's what that's about. It's kind of a mid.
As long as it's written so that we can enforce it and collect.
So would you be more comfortable with 500 then in that case, or the 500?
Yeah, I would say I think that's, I don't want to make people squawk too much about it. I would just like people to know that if, you know, if they're going to change a bunch of things without asking us, because it tends to be.
The contractor should know that's a given,
Well, there
right?
tend to be certain contractors who.
Well, then they should pay.
So what are we changing it to, 500?
Yes,
Or my proposed 625?
625.
That would be
Do I hear?
fine.
How about?
Do I hear?
All right, whatever, your
Is that
call.
what you're going?
What are we going to?
5?
500?
You always want to get more money.
Roof or siding,
It's wood.
it's a pretty nominal.
Right, increase.
Yeah.
Yeah, this reinstate the shed thing, that's interesting to me. Why did we stop asking for a permit?
When Chris was made building inspector, he felt that some of the things were, you know, we all have things that eat away at us. You know, it's like, when if I'm ever in that job, I don't know. That was,
It was somebody putting a 12 by 12 shed in the back, so it's 144 square feet, saying, you know, what's the big deal?
Right.
But you know what?
yeah, and it is,
It is a substantial structure, 12 by 12.
you know, sometimes people want to just plop down one of those little Rubbermaid sheds or something.
Yeah.
The problem and I totally get that, and I was actually on board, you know, but the problem is now we have all these situations where somebody's put a shed right on their property line.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then when we say, hey, you can't do that, they say, well, permit's not required.
Right, right.
I think maybe we just reinstate it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so too. Just an explanation on that. If you put pavers down versus a slab of concrete, is there any difference in the interpretation there between pavers going down as a footing for a shed versus a concrete flooring?
Well, technically New York State Building Code says that if it's a structure that's regulated, it has to be attached to the ground in some way that resists uplift.
Okay.
You know, basically it has to meet the same code as any other.
Okay. All right.
So footings,
I'm just
So you
thinking,
need something.
yeah.
just talking about these portables that they sell, they seem pretty lightweight, and it seemed like the wind would be able to.
Yeah, I mean, there should be footings. There should be footings or some way of anchoring to the ground. So you see that.
I don't think you ever see that. I mean, you see these shed companies bringing the sheds, they just put them like, you know, on concrete.
Cinder blocks, yeah.
Blocks and,
Yeah.
so they're supposed to be anchored?
Yeah, it's supposed to.
And if they're not, is there any chance we could be held liable for not enforcing that?
Well, basically what we should do, I guess, is to get architect's calculations as to how the uplift goes, or else it could meet the prescriptive code.
I mean, this is a real pain in the butt, but if we could be liable, we gotta make sure we cover ourselves.
I mean, the risk is.
Let's get back on.
Yeah, but
Fences, we gotta.
I understand, but these are
We got.
well, this is things, but you're making notes of things we have to.
Yeah, look, right here.
The risk is that it would blow away, which I have yet to see happen.
But it could.
Well, that's the kiss of death.
Thanks, Fran.
see. Signs.
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 $100.
Yeah.
Increase. Single-family dwellings, it looks complicated.
What's the sign permit? What is that?
That's for business signs.
Okay.
That is kind of light as compared to other municipalities.
For a sign? Yeah.
Yeah, but we're very limited in the size of signs they can put up. It's not like a billboard or a neon sign or.
And usually what happens with signs, frankly, is they put it up without a permit. And if we hear about it, it's because of neighbors complain. Then they get a permit. Single-family dwelling. So yeah, this looks complicated. It's basically a similar thing to what I just explained about estimated cost of construction. So we have a minimum, as it is now, we've got a minimum fee of $150, which I don't think anything would not break that minimum. We charge $4.50 per 1,000 square feet of estimated cost of construction. And so for category A is less than 2,500 square feet. We estimate a cost of construction of $90 a square foot. For the second floor, $70 a square foot.
Why so low?
That's low because we're trying to encourage first. We want to be as friendly as possible to people that are doing startups.
Okay.
That's for the, some local kid or something.
We're not looking at it.
Yeah.
We don't want to,
Right.
I agree.
it's a progressive fee.
I see that, yeah.
And in fact, it favored, it was very kind to the wealthier people who were building huge houses.
Yeah.
And really the reality is the estimated cost of construction of those houses is grossly underestimated by our numbers, even now.
Even with the increase, I would say.
So the second tier is 2,500 to 4,000 square feet, which is a more conventional house these days. And then 4,000 to 6,000 square feet, the estimated cost of construction goes up. And these are all guidelines that are, there are kind of national planning standards that generate numbers. These actually didn't come from. The only thing I would say is these numbers are affected by the national averages. These are more like, what it costs to build a house in Dubuque.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's low for our
These are
area.
very low for our.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Solar panels.
So this is something to get added to the list. You're not allowed to put them on the ground. In the code, it says, shall be on the roof of a residential building.
Yeah, I've seen them.
I know, I have one, a ground mount, but after I put mine in, you guys changed the code.
Oh.
I think it should change back. Don't get me wrong. I think ground mounts are great. And
I think-
not everybody's roof goes the right way.
Yeah, no, I think they're great for a number of.
Yeah.
Why it was changed?
I think, I actually don't know for sure, but I think my neighbor complained heartily, like it was unattractive. And I thought it was beautiful.
They changed the look. Because one person.
I don't know. I mean, it was a little bit.
Your neighbor.
I don't know. But my view is it's certainly better looking than, mountaintop mining.
If we're going to ventilate a roof, I would not do it on a roof that has
Right.
solar panels. That's for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, all right.
The roof mounted, I'm thinking if there's not some state law that says you can't, which I'm not aware that there is, I think maybe at this point, charge a fee to do the inspections, because the reality is, most of these are being handled by these companies, and they're profit-making companies. These are not, these are not good Samaritans who are saving the
These are
environment.
not Buddhists.
These are people who are selling, basically a derivative.
Yeah.
Was $100 enough?
And I
I
don't
didn't
think,
want to go.
Got to get up on the roof and.
because,
We
yeah,
don't go up to the roof.
The ground,
We look from the ground and we check the electrical.
How much time would you say?
It's usually half an hour, probably. You got to drive to the house, check the electrical connection, make sure that there are certain requirements for separation from the ridge and between the panels so that if there is a fire, somebody can get up there. We just verify those things.
You know, the differential between ground mount and roof mount, I think the roof mount would be more involved. But no, you don't go up there. So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we don't go up there, we look from below. The big issue is we drive over there, we go in the house, we check the electrical connections.
Right.
We make sure that they haven't drilled some hole.
So I think both for 200 should be, we get the on ground straightened out, ground mount, and 200 for both each. Shouldn't be different, is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
You're checking the same stuff.
Swimming pools up $75. Seems reasonable. I mean,
what about this idea? You put in a swimming pool with a cistern, which we all would like to encourage. There's no fee.
You have to put it to fill
Yeah.
no, there should be a fee.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. I want to encourage the cistern thing.
Yeah, but it's a cistern. It could be argued that the cistern just makes it easier to put your hose in the cistern instead of the pool.
Right. Okay.
A lot of us would beat that.
All right.
The cistern, the whole cistern idea, unless there's a flow meter on it, it's just really a feel good thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So with the in-ground pools, including a maximum of 36-inch apron and fence, what does that mean? If it's more than 36 inches, it's a bigger fee?
Well, no. It is. It just means that it includes the fence.
Including maximum 36-inch apron, what does that mean? That's the coping?
Oh, yeah, and you know what that is? That's because if you want a patio,
Yeah.
like a true patio,
Yeah.
then you have to get a separate.
Okay, that's right.
And you define that as greater
Yeah,
than
we just say.
36 inches.
Yeah,
I got you.
Inches around.
Great.
Tennis courts, up $100.
Temporary trailers and storage containers.
Tennis and timbers.
$25.
Yeah.
Okay. That was still on the last, sorry. Tennis
Tennis
court.
Oh, yeah, temporary trailers, yes, sir. Storage containers. Tennis courts, tents and temporary structures. That's up on. Oh, I see, we're going to, because there is a significant difference as they get larger in terms of what's required.
What do you have to do for that? That's like if somebody's having a wedding, you have to go inspect it?
Tents are a nightmare. Commercial. They don't, a tent permit is not required for a tent if it's under 400 square feet with closed sides or under 700 square feet with closed sides. That's New York State. That's when they start regulating. So we don't actually, if you've got a tent that's got open sides and it's under 700 square feet, we don't require a permit. We don't regulate. If it's over 700 square feet, then there's a bunch of fire code requirements. And in fact, when they adopted the new code in 2020, they made it quite a bit more onerous. They have to, I just had to tell the Heights that they need to have an engineer come up with a plan for and certify their tent.
Funny you should mention that because Stella has a hand raised.
Oh, yeah.
Stella, do you want to join us?
But again, we just talked fees.
Yeah, anyway, thanks for letting me just pipe in. I think the building department deserves every nickel they can get because they really are working extremely hard. But the requirement for and this has nothing, the but has nothing to do with the building department working hard. What it does have to do with is the New York State requirement that was just mentioned by Reed. So we went to one engineer and that's going to cost us $700 to get this opinion or this sign off in the design from this one engineer. So
That's still for one event?
for one event, yeah. So it to raise the fee from the building department, which I agree, they need a lot of, they earn it. And to have this requirement, and I'm going to try to find someone to do it less expensive. It just ends up being cost prohibitive. It almost starts to become, as expensive as the tent. So I just wanted to throw that out there for you all.
Well, what I don't understand is this is over and above the inspection you do?
Yeah, in other words, New York State requires, it's basically it's like hiring an architect to design your house. I believe what happened was, I believe they had a bunch of situations where tents, there are two things that happen to tents: fires and they blow away. In a situation like this, it's particularly an issue because it's on the water. Very often the tents we see are on the water, and it's quite possible that they can blow away. And the requirements of the state building code for tents are that they submit, if it's got enclosed sides, they have to have a fire escape plan. A lot of times you feel like it's a little bit of a over-regulation, frankly, but every so often not. Like if you go over to and that's the problem with these sort of one-size-fits-all requirements. Like when we do the tent inspection over at the Perlman, that's more than just an event tent. That's something where they've got fixed seating, they've got lights, they've got a whole thing going on in there. And if there was a fire, it would be bad news, or if it blew over. The reality is, yeah, you probably have enough time if there's a high, everybody would get out. But I guess there's a saying, anytime there's a regulation, it's because someone died. I think given the changes in the code, I think there must have been a couple of events that made them.
So Reed, with the changes in the code, wouldn't it be the responsibility of the tent company to include the 700 in there?
We don't care who does it, but somebody has to. In other words, ultimately the consumer is the property owner is going to pay that $700. It's just a question of whether. I think it should be handled by the tent companies. Ironically, we had one where this one tent company, the woman was complaining that she didn't want, she'd never heard of this before. We subsequently got from John Cronin a sample of the process, and her name was the name of the company doing it. So there's a little bit of disingenuousness sometimes on the part of the tent companies. We've never heard of this before. Nobody makes us do this well. In fact, that may or may not be the case.
So just so I understand, if I'm having a wedding in my backyard,
yes,
the tent is 20 by 40, that's 800 square feet.
Yes.
So it's over 7. So I have to get what size? You to inspect it and somebody else?
It and you need an engineer to come over and tell you what you have to do for hold down. If there's fixed seating,
But again, it goes back to, I'm renting a tent. That should be, the homeowner shouldn't have to do all that.
This is state.
It should all be.
This has nothing to do with us. It's required, and whoever pays it, but it has to.
So it has to come from someone, usually the tent company handles it, because they do it all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so then bringing it back, if we increase the tent fee from 125 to 150,
Plus 50.
and then you have plus 50 cents per square foot, and they're already having
So an
to do
800
engineering.
So Jerry's hypothetical 800 square foot tent would cost $200,
Right.
which involves us reviewing all this stuff we're going to get from the engineer, going over and seeing it, making sure that it's all done right. And in theory, I guess we could go over, make sure it's basically, it's still, I think,
This makes sense covering the amount
I have no problem with that. I'm more concerned with, I didn't know you had to inspect these things. So again, I'm having a wedding in my backyard. I have to apply for I do it or the tent company does it?
Usually the tent company.
Okay.
Somebody has
And
to.
do you ever find out that they don't have a permit?
well, people do it without permits periodically and, you know, it's usually not an issue unless it's you know, unless, I mean, if somebody has a party in their backyard, you know, we would be unlikely to find out.
Okay.
So it's 150 plus 50 cents per square foot?
Right.
Okay, so an 800 square foot tent would be $550 then.
No.
So is
No,
it,
it's 150 plus.
In other words,
800.
I'm sorry, over the minimum. The minimum is 700 for a closed tent, open tent.
Okay, got it. Okay, so that's,
we should specify that on here.
Yes.
got the math persons in here.
I had the same moment. I was like,
Yeah, no.
This is harder than my daughter's Common Core math.
Yeah.
That's
All right.
right.
So,
Well, we this is all taken from this crib sheet we have that only Mary Ellen can actually read. So you know, we're trying to make it legible.
Okay, commercial, automobile charging units.
Yeah, we're getting more and more of those, and these are the Tesla charging stations. People
right,
are putting them in homes.
right.
And again, that's just to make it kind of, you know, pay for our trip over there. I mean, I figure that,
But they still have to get a underwriter or.
yeah, they still have to get,
Yeah.
Are we requiring permits for those now?
yeah,
Okay.
they're required.
Because I know with the first few, it was like kind of willy-nilly.
Well, the town in 2020, they actually changed
Yeah.
the code.
Okay.
So it's required, because there's so many of them and they can.
If it's done wrong, it's a problem.
Can we go back to tents for a second?
Sure.
What about like some charitable functions? You
Yeah,
know,
it's one of those things we don't determine when it's required.
mhm,
It's required by New York State.
but does it depend on the size of the tent? Because I'm thinking like we just had the 10K. I don't know how big that tent was and where it came from, but don't we have some lines functions where we borrow Southbury tents and things like that?
Yeah, I don't think they're 700 square feet.
Okay, so they're under the.
That'd be
Yeah.
20 by 35.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just,
Point well taken.
okay.
I mean, if you want for charitable events, we could put in for a charitable event to waive the fee.
Mhm.
Not waive, you could have a reduced. I don't like the waive.
Yeah, and I'm thinking,
That's no gifts.
owned tents versus tents being brought in by a tent company.
Yeah.
That's sort of the delineation I was thinking.
Yeah.
I would support waiving the fee, because when you start thinking about some of our special events, whether it's Lions Club, the tent's 30 by 30, I'm not sure what the threshold is. Fire Department Chicken Barbecue, although they're not having it this year, they have large tents. You know, Amber mentioned the 10K. Just consider it, that's all I would say.
The Shamanic dinner dance,
The shaman.
it's huge.
But again, waiving, I frown upon, but if you want to have a reduce, they would have to pay something.
And the
I think
inspection still needs to be done, because I remember a chicken barbecue where a strong wind came through and the tent started to go up and people started grabbing the poles to like pull it back down. I don't know who else was there, but I was like, oh, this is new.
Probably not should do.
Right. That's what firemen are
So
doing.
Stephen, we probably should put some kind of wording in there.
$50
On
for
review.
a charitable organization.
I wouldn't even put a number on it, just say charity, we'll look at them on an individual basis.
You have to put something on there.
He's gonna. Oh, yeah, it's not comfortable.
Oh, it's not coming.
Typically, anything that the town is doing, the fire department or some extension of the town, we don't charge a fee for it because it's.
Right.
It's usually they're applying for an outdoor assembly permit.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought we could waive the fee, is that?
During the crafts fair, you have at least 40 of them up, but they're small tents.
Yeah.
They're usually because they're 10 by 10s or,
If they're, yeah,
8
they're
by
open
10s.
tents and they're under 700 square feet.
yeah, they wouldn't apply.
They
Put
don't.
that on your list, Steve.
That's-
Okay.
Sorry, continue on.
Commercial ansel system.
Commercial ansel system, where am I?
What is that?
That's over the system over.
Oh, yeah, that's in the restaurant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, gotcha.
And again, that gets inspected by a professional also.
Yeah, we do an inspection and they do an inspection. You know, like,
Yeah.
they did an inspection at the Cheapwood, but then we noticed that actually they hadn't attached, it was all good as far as the unit itself, because that's really what they care about. But the duct sucking everything out hadn't been attached or sealed properly. So we do something. Yeah.
So is that enough money?
Yeah, it's basically us going over here, reviewing the plans, doing the paperwork, going over the certificate of completion. Bed and breakfast license, that's just a sort of.
In 2 years, okay.
Pretty low, 2 years you get.
Mhm.
It's about a quarter of the cost of a night. Now, accessory apartment license. This is something that we've had on the books, but has gotten a little confusing as all the rental laws have changed. There were, to my knowledge, less than 4 accessory apartment licenses. It says in the town code that if you have an accessory apartment or create one, you have to get a license. They used to charge, whatever it was, $150 for 2 years, $250. The only time I ever saw anyone get a license, the only time I've ever done an inspection was Barbara up in Hay Beach.
Alan.
Barbara Allen was the only person I knew who actually maintained her license.
Yeah, I would say let's hold off on this one.
Yeah, that'll be a
That's
code review.
It's a whole discussion.
Yeah, and I just think maybe let's remove that for now until we figure out
What we're doing.
Yeah. Okay.
certificate of compliance, principal. In other words, right now we have $250 for 2 years for an accessory apartment.
We'll just leave it at that.
We're not charging it.
We're not charging. We were told a few years ago not to charge $250.
This is, Stephen, this is a whole work agenda for
No, I get it.
discussion, you know,
No, I just,
ADUs.
I'm saying,
the code says you have to charge a filing. But
This will be an agenda item.
I'll put that on the list.
Okay.
Definitely.
yeah, I think.
But it would have started.
It's also saying he gets no
Bring it up to
application,
the
so it's
21st
kind of,
century.
moved.
No, I know it's moved, but if someone comes in.
I know, well, yeah, all
Can't
right.
just say, well, somebody told me.
Actually, that was on my list at the end to mention. I have to put that on the upcoming agenda.
Yeah.
ADUs. How we're gonna.
And somehow accessory apartments have now gotten mixed up with long-term rentals, and it's a little.
Short-term rental.
But we also have to just take into account that we're updating the comprehensive plan, and that's in the zoning code. So we could start the conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of that is going to be definitions too, because the definitions are.
Kavachka, yeah.
Awesome.
Certificate of compliance.
What is that? What's
When we issue a C of O.
a C of O?
A certificate of compliance is when the structure predates the code. We don't issue an actual certificate of occupancy. We just say this pre-existed the code and therefore is not in violation of its existence.
Mhm.
I like pre-CO better as verbiage.
Yeah, no, I'm all in favor of because the whole, yes. And they've been issued alternately as certificates of completion and certificates of compliance. Nobody was ever sure.
Yeah.
So the certificate of completion is the same thing, it predates?
Well, the certificate of completion, anything that's not occupied, that doesn't have an occupancy class, we issue a certificate of completion. That's say for a roof, for a dock or a bulkhead, anything other than a dwelling or should be, or structure with an occupancy.
Like an
class.
accessory.
What about, do you issue them for like wetlands permits if they have conditions they gotta meet as far as revegetation, things like that? Do you ultimately get a certificate of completion on that?
No, because usually, no. Could. I mean, usually wetlands permits are part of a body of work. And, you know, so that like a renovation of a house or an addition or putting a pool in. So we kind of roll the certificate of completion into that.
So
I
I was
suppose
going
if
to
someone.
say, so for example, if someone is expanding a deck into the wetlands, there are a whole bunch of requirements. You would issue the certificate of completion for that deck,
Yes.
and it would have to include all the other things that they were required to
Yes.
do.
In other words, they would have to meet the terms of the wetlands.
Gotcha.
That's
But sometimes it's like a basement situation.
Right.
So I'll put that on the list. I think we should have.
It's another-
information on.
Yeah.
If somebody were getting a permit that involved the building department and getting a wetlands permit, yeah, we would, if it didn't have any building construction involved, yeah, then that would make sense to have. Certificate of occupancy, again, just a bump.
Yeah.
Demolition permit.
I'm assuming it's $1 for the unsigned copy, not
Oh,
1,000 missing a
yes.
zero.
Should
I just got
period,
confused. All right.
So again, with all the COs you're issuing and all the time involved, that's enough of an increase?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
But, so that's a separate fee above and beyond the building permit fee?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, they do the permit, they break them out separately.
That's interesting. Other municipalities don't do that. So
Southampton does it,
Southampton doesn't, do it. Or Southall, you don't pay a separate fee, the CO,
Really?
you just pay it all up front.
for the building permit.
Yeah, we do the building permit, but we also have, I don't know. it's-
How they incorporated into the,
They have it charged when the permit is issued, so it's part of the permitting fee.
right,
Throw it on the building permit.
Yeah, that's what it looks like here.
they're hiding it in the menu.
And this could also-
Duplicate,
Yeah.
a signed or an unsigned duplicate copy, that's additional work for them, so that's an
So
extra.
that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, and at some point, we should probably address the issue of requiring an updated C of O for any property transfer, because we're having so many problems, but that's sort of a separate issue.
Put that on the
Down,
list.
put
That's
that
not
down.
just,
But wait a minute, is this enough money where we have here updated with inspection? Again, your time, $75, you cost more than that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's really a real estate thing. I mean, with all of these, it's funny because I always used to argue with people about this, because it's not just whatever an hour of our salary time is. It includes our pension,
Yeah, it's what you cost. Yeah.
And, the keeping the lights on back there.
Oh, not to mention the heat. It's crazy.
Well, that's what it's the same principle with the CPF. When, Brian goes out, originally they were just charging the man hours, now you have to incorporate all the expenses that go with it.
So,
Same thing.
Yeah, no, that's always been.
The other big factor is that these fees will last change in 2018, it's 2022, so every 4 years. So when you make these changes, it's not like it's done annually, it's done in bits and pieces. So you're not even making these projections based on what the cost is today, you're making a projection on what the cost is over the next 4 years.
so I would also, the same as the residential at 150 should be the updated, no? 150.
And my other comment on that, projecting out.
because it has the inspection factor.
Yeah.
My other comment about other projecting out over 4 years is the fact that we've often talked, the greatest criticism of the town sometimes is enforcement. And if we're looking to continue to beef up the building department and to be, to cover all the needs, it's something we have to think about. Revenues are important in order to sustain a larger department. And I always feel like we're going razor thin on everything we do based on the needs for today. And these needs constantly change, as we've seen with, the Prerequisite, the cheap with these larger homes, and everything seems to be much more complicated, much more involved. So and you've taken on additional responsibilities, whether it's the rentals and everything else that you've taken on over the course of years. The department itself, when you think about, well, could we hire another part-time person to help us out? If whether it's cisterns or whether it's metering or whether it's this, that, the other thing, it's just, there's a lot to this. I think we should try to the best of our ability. If we're going to not do this every year and do it, every 4 or 5 years, that we project ahead enough sufficient monies in order to think about possible expansions of the building department to help meet the needs.
Well, the last time we raised them, it had been, I think, a little over 10 years since we'd raised rates.
Right.
And so we didn't want to raise them too much in one fell swoop. That's why we want to do it now to sort of make up a little bit of it.
Right. Well, that makes sense also. Right?
Because this is really the second one we had in 14 years.
Right.
Yeah. Jim, I just asked him, but what we'll do is we'll project these increases, have they been in place, the last 2 or 3 years, but the increases, I feel it's not enough for the increased staffing that we're looking at. Maybe we'll have to change them. Okay.
Okay.
So
Demolition permit?
demolition permits. Well, yeah, I mean, I brought that up significantly because there's now, since we now have to deal with asbestos inspections, we probably should be dealing with lead inspections for some structures.
There's no doubt that demolition is much more involved today than it was 10 years ago. Regulations governing these demolitions, proportions, it's become much more costly to do these demolitions.
Yeah. Cell towers, that one, I think keep it what it was before, which is based on actual estimated cost of construction. The only thing is I think we need to be a little better about keeping track of what the actual cost of construction is, not taking the word for it necessarily.
How do we do that? How do we do that?
It's a good question. We don't want to get to the point that Southampton does, I don't think, where they actually require all receipts. And, we don't have time, we don't have a big enough office for
Put it on your list.
But I think that
There's no more room.
but I think we should maybe ask for some statement from them in which they say, no, this is really not just
Right.
somebody walks in and says,
Here's that.
something.
Right.
The SWIP review, I mean, realistically, that probably should be higher too. Just because the
Tell us what the SWIP is again.
storm, you just like to hear me say, stormwater prevention protection plan. And it's it's actually not reviewed by us. We just determine when it's required. It's reviewed by Joe.
Basically says you have to keep all stormwater runoff generated on your property.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
But they also,
to
there's
show
actually there's a component which I'm not sure of ongoing verification that that they're supposed to have somebody who goes around and make sure everything's good at the end of every day. It's a whole process.
Yeah, like during construction, you have to make sure that you're keeping all runoff on your property. So there's things you do in order to do that. And someone's supposed to go around and confirm that those things are being done and that runoff is not leaving the property. It's a process.
We don't do very many of them. There's now one triggered by that issue we have in Hilo with the wall that's gone up because it's diverted all this runoff into the road. And that's one of the triggers. The triggers are clearing more than an acre.
Yep.
Or causing runoff to go onto a neighbor's property or into the water. So those are the triggers.
So you brought it up, could you fill us in, not now, which I don't want to stay on the subject, but the determination, what's happening with that wall? Just in an email, you can.
Actually, the SWIP is the new plans, we haven't got a script, but the new plans for the wall are in Joe's hands. He's reviewing.
So I know I'm going off subject. Too bad. I have a house, right? My neighbor has a house behind me, clears it, builds. All of a sudden, my yard's getting flooded. What do you think? This should have been done before that, or?
The problem is, and this is kind of where we run into it, I have a situation down in Silver Beach where the neighbors are complaining because somebody down on, Hidden Path, has been regrading his lot. Well, until something happens, he has cleared more than an acre. Until something happens and stormwater is diverted, I can't.
I got an example. I got a customer in Hay Beach who, when we get monsoons, he's got 1.5 feet of water in his garage and basement from the 2 houses behind him.
That would trigger a SWIP, and they would have to do some sort of they'd have to do a stormwater protection.
So what is the process to do that?
They hire an engineer to come in and calculate the runoff, take a look at the topography, figure out where to dump it, what size dry wells and drains are put in. Yeah, no, that would actually be a perfect example of when it's required.
So what would be the homeowners? He would come to the building department?
Well, if there's a problem, the neighbor who's the aggrieved party would come to us and make a complaint. We would go over and look at it. As I've just been going this one in Sunset Beach, I haven't seen any runoff, despite the fact that the neighbors insist it's going to happen on Silver Beach. Silver Beach, yeah.
I know the house.
Yeah. And but there hasn't been any runoff until there's runoff.
Actually, I would love to see before you go to a building department on anything or anywhere, no matter, call up your neighbor and say, listen, I have pictures of this. This didn't happen for years. This is what's happened since you cleared the backyard. We need to talk. Would you be willing to do something here? You got to. Otherwise, you're kind of forcing my hand to go. That's something that
in that case, the neighbor's saying that all these new plantings, these trees I put in have died because of. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. He's just had some very expensive trees die, and he doesn't like that. Yeah, I'm not right. That's a civil matter.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Sure.
Irrigation permit.
It's on the list.
Yeah.
It's on the list. It's on the list.
Reinspection after failure, that would remain unchanged. Site safety inspection. Pre-construction consultation design for.
What is a site safety inspection? What is that?
That's basically when we go for if usually it's if a homeowner's selling their house, they want a site inspection to make sure that their pool gates are compliant. The smoke and seal detectors. We just make sure there are no violations.
This pre-construction consultation with design professionals, do you get that much? We're
getting that more and more.
Is it the sort of thing of, will this be allowed?
Yeah, or what do you think of? And it's usually we don't charge this to a private individual. This would be if you want to come in with your architects or your architect and find out what the local codes are, rather than look it up in the town code. And we explain it to you. We charge.
Yeah. That should be per hour.
That's what I'm thinking. How long is it? What's the time frame?
Usually it's, done in an hour.
So one could for first hour. I don't, but I don't.
Yeah, usually we don't usually have a meeting. Sometimes there are multiple ones, like the Vela property when he bought his castle. It was endless and this is partly to defray the cost of these ones where they get an approval and they want to change it. They get an approval and they want to change it. It's like at some point we need to charge for that, because we're spending more and more time. Frankly,
Yeah.
where it's
Yeah.
just,
Would it be 150 each time or?
yeah, it would be.
Okay.
Okay.
So when you have really complicated designs.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, high-end stuff tends to do that.
Yeah, so then just the reinstating the shed, the small shed and fence.
Yeah.
Okay,
On the list.
it's on the list.
Okay, so everybody just review these. If we have any questions, we'll ask you to come next week. If not, we'll put it on the agenda for
Yeah,
next town board meeting.
it's just a resolution.
Okay, thanks, Reed.
Thanks.
And Reed, while you're standing there, real quick, I had a short-term rental update on the original agenda, but Michael's in training. this
Yeah, he's in training and he's the one doing
Yeah,
it.
so we'll do that when he's done. Okay,
I think, let me make sure
yeah,
if he's
on
on
the schedule. Okay,
All right.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. A lot of work done there.
Yeah. Okay, next on the agenda is the meeting schedule proposal. Amber had done a printout of what it would look like if we changed it. Again, the thought process is we keep all the meetings on Tuesday. On the third Tuesday, we have a work session at 3:00 and then the town board meeting at, what are we saying, 6:00?
6 p.m.
6 p.m. So, but anything that we did at the work session, the day of the town board meeting wouldn't be at that town board meeting.
Right, exactly.
And again, it's,
And again,
Case of emergency, yes.
yeah, someone has to be dying. In response to the criticism and in this last week's paper, I think this actually makes it more accessible. I will stand by that assertion that a meeting at 4:30 on a Friday is actually worse for our part-time residents. The claim was that it was made 4:30 on a Friday so that our part-time residents could attend. I think that's a transit time for a lot of people. And so I think 6 p.m. on a Tuesday will capture more people, part-time residents and people who work a usual work day.
And I would add to that, we're working on legislation to incorporate continuing with hybrid meetings.
Correct.
And that has greatly opened up participation by the public. So
Right.
I wouldn't be on board with this change if we were not doing the hybrid.
Actually, if we were not doing hybrid, I would be arguing for 7 p.m. on Friday.
right.
I mean,
Going back to the original 20 years plus.
Right. But 4:30 to me was just a non-starter for so many people, for so many people, working people and part-time people. It's like that to me was needed to change.
Tuesday is such a bland day of the week.
Yeah.
Versus Friday.
Right.
Friday, people have plans.
Right. So
Tuesday, nobody has plans on Tuesday.
Yeah, right.
It's red-headed stepchild of the week.
And the proposed time isn't in the middle of the workday, it's 6 p.m.
6 p.m. Right, which I really think is helpful.
And we're not reducing the number of work sessions by 25%. We are reducing them by 2. And if we want to scroll through, I can show you the ones that I was proposing taking away. I worked on this, got some input with Meg, and then sat down with Dottie to make sure I wasn't missing anything as far as like notifications on public hearings and things like that. And
Public notice to the paper, making sure all the deadlines get covered.
so I think a couple of the things is I had proposed taking off the July 5th meeting because we have to keep the July 1st meeting because we already have public hearings scheduled. So that's going to be our last Friday, 4:30 p.m. And then in order to keep the 3-week time frame, you have to count out 3 Tuesdays, which would be July 26th would be our next town board meeting. So we already have 2 town board meetings ahead of that, and July 5th with the holiday. I just thought, just take that one off.
Yes.
And then I already did that. Yeah. If you scroll down to the calendar, which is I printed out the town calendar so you can see, and I hand wrote it in so it would be perfectly clear what was changing. So I always made sure. So I think there was one one town board meeting that got pushed out to a fourth week, which periodically the original calendar had cited 4 week ones. So there was 1 or 2 that got pushed so that it wouldn't conflict with planning board, so as not to make them move. And if you jump to September, we'd originally scheduled, and we didn't used to do this in prior years, but we this year said, oh, we can do Tuesday meetings after a holiday. But if the one after Labor Day weekend, we originally had a town board meeting scheduled for Tuesday the 6th, but because that's a week for the third week to be a town board meeting, I'm proposing moving it to Wednesday because we really do need that extra day. If like we can't come off on the weekend and go straight to a town board
and be
meeting. We
productive.
need an extra day just to get everything.
Yep,
That's good. That's a good point.
yep.
And then, let's see, I think in November was my next sort of question for all of you. We had, and just on in November, we've got one town board meeting will be on a Wednesday because election day is on Tuesday.
Right.
But because we do have a Monday and then town hall's closed for election day, we still have one day that week to get ready. So I kept that on a Wednesday. And then historically, we have not had a town board meeting, and when I was going through with Dottie, the week of Thanksgiving. And I sort of remembered that, and we didn't make that, we kept it in the calendar this year. So I had proposed like taking the 29th off, just because we have 4 town board work sessions. So that would be the 5th town board work session that month. But should we keep it to taking off the Tuesday before Thanksgiving instead of the Tuesday after Thanksgiving? Thoughts?
I like the Tuesday before, mostly because there's nothing on that Wednesday, if anybody's traveling. Whereas the Tuesday after, there's CPAC on the 28th. It just would.
Yeah. And Dottie was the one who reminded me that it used to be the Tuesday, the week of Thanksgiving as opposed to the week after.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can make that change and get that recirculated.
Just in case Dottie has Florida plans, not saying.
Because Rochester plans.
Right. Rochester.
Okay.
Okay, so that stays. And then in December, we had, which we normally in prior years didn't used to have, a town board meeting the week between Christmas and New Year's.
Right.
So we had put that on the schedule originally, but then what we've done is we've always added an annual meeting that week.
Yeah.
So I took off the Tuesday town board work session and put in a Wednesday annual meeting.
6 p.m. Is that what it says?
That would be 1 p.m.
Oh, 1 p.m. Okay.
Yes, I mean, but actually, Dottie, do you have any thoughts on whether the annual meeting should be during the day or if it's 6 p.m. that day?
I don't think it really matters because it doesn't really last too long.
Right.
Yeah, it's mostly like year-end kind of business.
Right, yes.
Yeah, it's really, housekeeping. So that's, my scratch is 1 p.m.
1 p.m. Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, so that was the only other thing that I had changed.
Great.
So
Thank you for all of that. It's terrific.
So except for that one change, I'll get that back over to you, Dottie. I guess we should put that on for the July 1st.
So,
Right.
let's put something on there.
I think I caught them all.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, so let me just, Jerry's asking a question about, like, I did take away 3 town board work sessions, but I added the annual meeting. So that would be 3 out of
So really be 2 hours.
Yeah, that's just a swap. Yeah, so it's, so that's the means that I've taken away. That's a 8% drop.
Okay. Okay.
And so then the only other correspondence, like we'd seen the letter to the editor in the paper, and talked about that. We've gotten an email just about suggestion that we, other towns do evening work sessions a couple times a month. So East Hampton has like 2 meetings at 6:30, 2 meetings at 10. Southampton does 2 meetings a month. One is a daytime, the other's an evening. Southold has meetings twice a month, one in the evening, once in the day. Riverhead, 2 meetings a month, one day, one night.
And those are town board meetings, not work sessions.
work
That
sessions.
I'm not clear on because this was pulled together by somebody, so I wondered about the meetings, and I tried to go to the East Hampton website to pull it, and
I think generally speaking, work sessions are consistent at a time throughout the municipalities. And they do afford residents town board meetings, a afternoon and an evening. But I could be wrong, but I think across the board, work sessions generally the same time.
One way to attack, a different kind of way to attack this is, so if work sessions continue at 1 o'clock, they're a work day, but they're recorded, they're available. So if you had a chance to see a work session after the fact, would it be okay if we permitted as a town board the following work session at the end of the meeting, a discussion, by a townsperson, people who are unable to get to the 1 o'clock because they're working, that now have a comment on last week's topic, whatever it might have been. I know you're going to hate that.
Well, no. They do have the town board meetings about whatever they want. But that is like, it's up to the town board whether, and I think we've been loosey-goosey on this anyway.
Agenda items?
Yeah, because our work sessions.
Comments at the end of the session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I believe the town supervisor has allowed comments that aren't just agenda
I
items.
don't think we have to make it official. We
Okay.
pretty much
All right.
acknowledge anybody.
Because that's what I'm saying. That would be
Yeah.
the only sort of thing of not changing the work sessions, but to say to people who watch it later or read about it,
Right.
that you can comment at a later session, and we'll hear you.
Yeah, and I mean, also, the research, this person was like calling different towns and talking to town clerks. At the town board meetings, there's 15 minutes either at the beginning or the end, and the public can ask any questions or comments. And some are limited to 3 minutes per comment.
Yeah, just, and that's how we are too. Town board meeting, we open it up for public comment on an agenda item at the beginning of a town board meeting. And then at the end, they could speak about whatever they want. So we do that for town board meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, and just, to read.
It's in the association.
Yeah, the Association of Towns that we just got today in our folders, in public participation, can also limit the subject matter and length of topic. Participation. Town member might say they can comment only on items on the agenda and are limited to 3 minutes. And they strongly recommend creating a written policy on public participation in meetings. And we have one at the door for people to take them in. So
We're good.
we're in line with what other towns.
So just to respond to the letter and the reporter about the meeting schedule, as Amber mentioned, the proposed time is not in the middle of the workday, the town board meetings. It's better than it was. It's going from 4 to 6. We're not decreasing the work sessions by 25%. We're decreasing them by just under 8%. As public servants, their job is to serve. Not to make it more convenient for the town board members. I don't think that's what we're doing. I think we're trying to open it up to the public more and
Right.
make it more efficient.
And why can't we be considered? We're employees.
Right.
We have lives,
And the last one would be Friday meetings would change from 7 to 4:30. 20 or so years ago, there was outcry from second homeowners that they would not be able to attend. Nobody addressed it. So,
Yeah.
With the Zoom and changing the meetings to 6 o'clock, I think we are addressing it.
And I think it's important to reiterate that you're one of the only towns that I can think of that has a work session every week.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, it's 2 times a month. Other municipalities have 0 work sessions. One town. So
Christina, what are you doing to the camera?
The camera's very confused.
But yeah, so for someone to insinuate that this town board doesn't look out for the public and go above and beyond to make sure things are done in public is not right. And again, having as many work sessions you have, you're way ahead of the game. That's it. Yeah.
And I think
I know this person pretty well and a former being a town board member. The intentions were well, but the demands of this job have changed significantly. And you want to believe it or not, and when you sit on 8, 9, 10, I sit on 11 committees that meet fairly regularly, not to mention the amount of work generated in between meetings just to stay abreast of all this. It's a lot of work, and nobody's complaining about it. No, and we do acknowledge the fact that we are public servants, but we're trying our best to have a good balance here. And I agree with the opening comment. If we did not agree to the fact that this video conferencing would be available, then I wouldn't be in favor of this. But we're trying to be, and we're trying something new, and we're trying it for a period of 6 months. And if we think that it's not working, we go back to what we were doing.
And it's very important for Dottie's office, especially since the burden of work falls on them, that this works out for them as well.
That is.
And we're hoping that by leaving a week between the last work session and the.
As opposed to 3 days.
That we do better in terms of dumping. On them.
We try it out. See if it works, and solicit feedback from the public, by the way, on what you think.
After a few months.
And then we have to, nothing wrong with that.
Okay, next on the list, I asked Ryan to come and speak with us about a fuel surcharge at the recycling center. We increased the rates at the landfill to cover our costs, and we were doing great until this fuel prices that we're in. We're projecting townwide major deficit in fuel costs. I think people don't realize the cost just at the landfill, which I didn't realize, is that we use about 200 gallons a day when we have the grinder working up at the debris pile in the back. And 200 gallons. It's a lot of money today. Brian.
So yes, we're looking at a projection of almost $90,000 in fuel costs, extra fuel costs because of fuel price. Wow. Not all of that comes from the landfill, but 75% of it does. And our outlets for getting rid of waste are already charging surcharges, either percentage, by the load, by the ton, by the yard. So everybody is taking precautions, and now it's time for us to take precautions. What that percentage is, we need to break it down a little bit more through the landfill, through the recycling center fees and what comes in and what goes out, and how we do that through the scale program, which is, I think, is going to be pretty basic. It's just another material item in the system with that percentage of what it needs to be.
And it won't be a permanent thing. If fuel goes out again, we can eliminate it.
We're traveling with construction debris. We're traveling with stumps and not stumps, but the concrete and the asphalt, things like that. So
and we're getting charged.
And we're getting charged.
Charges the other way.
We need to make up those differences. And unfortunately, everybody's starting to do it, so everybody's starting to feel it. And so we just need to stay on top of it and do the same thing.
And again, it's user-based. It's user, not doing it to the general taxpayer. If you're going into the landfill and dropping off, it's going to be a fuel surcharge for your drop off.
Right. And one of the biggest surcharges is probably going to be the brush, because it does take such an amount of energy to grind that stuff up, which will probably be more than, say, C&D. But on the other side of it, construction debris, we're possibly looking at grinding construction debris in another couple of years down the road, because Brookhaven will be closing, and then we'll have to be either traveling farther or paying more in tipping fee to drop it where we're dropping it now, because they'll be traveling farther. So the more we can get on a truck, the better. So that's something that's coming down the road, not particularly right now, but it's something that's going to be fairly soon. A couple of years, which is going to be another added fee if we have to.
So when Amber and I and Brian sat down, we just did a real quick back of the envelope look at what it costs at the landfill with the increases, specifically And we're talking a little over 20%.
Yeah, I want to, like, as Brian said, sit down and look at it.
Yeah.
More
So
closely.
hopefully next meeting, I can give you how we can do it through the scale program, or exactly it would be, will it be 20%? Other things might be a little bit more, a little bit less.
Right.
And then we can nail it down and see where we need to be.
All right. So everybody's ready for it.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I mean, thank God we've been moving in this direction,
Yeah.
a while now, outside of fuel costs, I think if we hadn't been, we'd be in real trouble.
Yeah.
Real trouble. So, I've been, and I've been saying it for 7 years, that place doesn't run by itself. I mean, I'm up, how much I'm up there, and, it's machinery's going constantly. I mean, not just the worker, but the amount of gasoline. When you have after a storm and those trucks, dozens and hundreds of them coming in dumping debris, that thing never stops. I mean,
the storms are like the killer, but you go up there and it amazes me how fast it refills itself there with
The last 2 years have been astonishing.
I don't have the place clean and you go back in a week and what happened?
No, but even the initiatives that we've taken on, whether at different places the town has, and taking debris up there, cleaning up its own properties. It's been a lot. Stuff on this island grows like wildfire. I mean, it is amazing how stuff, I'm just a victim of it, trimming bush, constantly. Trimming stuff, filling up the truck and bringing it up, it's.
And I think you guys have had to deal with a lot of clearing. A lot of people purchased properties during the pandemic, and then they did major tree work, they did renovations, they did a lot. You guys have been inundated
And a
with a
couple of
lot.
the bigger guys used to bring their stuff off the island because it was cheaper and not doing that anymore.
Exactly. They're bringing it to us because it's actually cheaper to come to us and take it over.
Right.
Yeah.
So I know we previously hit on a burn box.
Yes.
So I actually got a response after the last meeting I was here. And New York State did change all of the regulations for burning, especially in municipalities. We're waiting for the final written text of those regulations to come out. I've got a few quotes on some machines and possibly a pathway for some grants about getting some of these burn boxes either hooked into the grid, which is what they really want, or in the lines of making ash to put back in the soil, richer topsoil production.
Yeah.
So we're almost there. We're close to what we can do, what we can't do. Just waiting for the legislature to give us the final law that they're going to.
This is something Brian and I have been talking about for the last few years. And we have a company on board. We're just waiting for the regulations. We have the option of again, incinerating it and then selling the ash because apparently the ash is worth some money, or incinerating it, generating power, and then selling the ash. So it's just a matter, we want to get a demonstration, but we want to know, do we have enough to generate power?
Right. Consistently.
But we have a pile, but is it,
how consistent.
What's the pollution profile of the burning?
They all scrubbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the clean, environmental.
And we had spoken. We had spoken to Fred Deal that, we really could be a pilot program for this. We're self-contained,
Yeah.
Good example of how it works. So we'll see. Thanks, Brian.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. That's it for the agenda. We'll go around the table. I will start. This Thursday at 2:00, there's a public hearing from the county legislators for the reapportionment of the districts in Suffolk County. So it's a bipartisan commission. It's not, Democrat or Republican. It's just coming out to tell us what the reapportionment is going to look like and to hear public comments on it. That's Thursday here at 2:00. And that's it for me. Hey.
Green Options met on June 16th. And we had a presentation done by Lynn Arthur on community choice aggregation, which is a means of kind of shoring up your power grid and alternate ways of creating energy, and it was very interesting. And I guess I was learning a lot about it because it was my first introduction. But I guess Mike Bebon did a presentation in the past about it, and so then they're just they're looking at it again because laws are changing and codes are changing.
Is it going anywhere? I mean,
Yeah, there are grant programs now available, and it's kind of moving up to a new level. So I was going to do some research, look back, read Mike Bebon stuff, rewatch this meeting, and kind of see which direction it's going in. Because now there's been some legislation that kind of forces LIPA to get in line. And so now there are changes coming that we could take advantage of. There are more grant programs for municipalities in particular. So I need to do more research on that.
Really, I remember the initial one didn't really seem too geared to it. We were just too small a community.
Yeah, so things have shifted and changed since then. And then there's this ETIP program, which is kind of for making small island communities energy independent, so to speak. And it's a grant program that has been happening annually. And they were going to Green Options was considering trying to apply for something this year, but it takes a lot of background information in the application. So weren't prepared for anything there, but they're thinking towards next year and just kind of collecting information. And then also discussed the Green Options Expo, or the Green Expo is going to be the same day, the August 20th, from 11 to 3, same day as the craft fair. They always go hand in hand. So if the rain date is the 27th and it gets rained out, it'll be the 27th. So they were just talking about having all the tables and vendors set up. The comp plan is also going to have a table at the Green Expo. So people can come and give us suggestions, ideas. We'll have copies of chapters. They can make notes, things of that nature. So
We're going to have coffee and donuts. If I have anything to say about it.
Yeah, that's a big year. Tim's been doing a great job.
yeah, he's done a really great job with it. So it's going to be a fun event. I think there's going to be a lot going on that day. So it's a good day to come out and see what's been happening. And that's sort of what I have.
Okay.
When you were talking about the redistricting,
Yes.
it made me think of there's Republican and Democratic primaries going on currently.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, there's
Today's
early
Tuesday.
voting.
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
early voting on Shelter Island, which we couldn't get a couple years ago.
During the
But-
general.
Yeah.
And actually, we kind of we were running around like chickens without heads Friday because it started Saturday.
Mhm.
So we had to call the board of elections, say, you understand that 10K? So they manned it. I don't know if anybody went to it Saturday.
Yeah, I didn't see anybody go.
But it's tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And the hours vary between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. tomorrow, 12 to 8, both Thursday and Friday, and 10 to 6 on Saturday.
So it's for all primaries, not Republican or Democrat.
Right. Oh, yeah. I know that there's Republican Democratic primaries going on. I didn't know there were others.
No, I mean, it's for,
It's for all the
that usually
primaries, yes.
like
Yes.
one day is the Democrat primary, another day is Republican primary, but it's just all
It's my
encompassing.
understanding it's all.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So moving on to committee stuff.
And excuse me, just by the way, that's because we, fought with them to get
Yeah.
early voting back here. We got it.
I think the rational primaries is later in the season, right? For a second, this is just.
I don't think it's gonna, this is gonna be a Republican primary.
This is
It's not.
state primaries and
Yeah.
federal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
September?
I think it is September.
Yeah, September, they're not quite sure yet. They're still trying to fight some things out.
Yeah, I haven't gone over
Yeah,
yet to
shocking.
scope it out. One of my meetings of many was the EMS Advisory Board meets quarterly, and that was a good meeting. There, couple of highlights: younger people have joined in the past couple of years, and so the feeling of vibrancy in the agency is really good. Like they're showing up, they're coming down to the ambulance barn,
Mhm.
doing stuff and being up there on top of stuff, which is really nice. Just wanted to continue to highlight that the foundation is fundraising and purchasing equipment frequently that offsets the town budget. So they're like a huge help.
Is there a cricket match this year? That's usually a big fundraiser for them.
I don't remember that being mentioned, but
haven't seen any signs. I don't know.
yeah, I'm not sure about. We've gotten a new ambulance. The decommissioned one has been repurposed for storing equipment, mass casualties, and fire scene equipment. So even though it's come offline as an ambulance, it has.
You sure?
Mhm.
They must have decommissioned too, because we got one for the
Well, I was just about to
residential. Oh,
say,
okay.
the prior one that we used for that was then given to the residential repair program. So yeah, you jumped the gun on me. So like, as we do all over the town, when one vehicle gets retired in one place, it gets repurposed in multiple other cases. So again, we're like reuse, repurpose, recycle. The File of Life program is in the process of being updated with stickers on doors, with the information on refrigerators. So they've been reaching out to seniors to make sure that everyone gets updated. And then Greenport, you may have heard, had that active shooting drill a couple Saturdays ago, and our people did participate in that as well.
Yeah, any news on the
Oh, we're getting close on that. Yeah, so we do get an opportunity with Stony Brook, Southampton, I guess it is, or Stony.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure which name it's under.
Right.
They are going to give us an opportunity to interview a couple of the people because we need to find somebody who has a good, would be a good fit to work with volunteers, because it's a tricky balance of, we don't want someone coming in who's just going to be like, I know everything, you know nothing, and take over, and our volunteers feel this.
Who will do that? The whole committee or just a couple of them?
I think just a couple of the officers. So that's in process. So hopefully by, end of next week or so, we'll
Right.
start to see somebody here. I think, 8 to 8, 8 in the morning till 8 p.m., 7 days a week. They would be bringing their own vehicle. It is being partially funded, 50%, not partially, 50% funded by Southampton Hospital. So that's huge. We budgeted $132,000. Our cost is going to be $117,500. Plus we're starting at mid-year. So we'll have a little extra money in the budget. But if they're not going to do the 50% next year, we'll be looking at a $235,000 bill.
Right.
So we just have to keep that in mind and kind of see if we can get a read on that big expenditure by budget season. So sorry, I forgot to mention that.
Yep.
Just see if I had anything from planning board.
Sorry if I got that.
There was something, and Meg probably can speak to this better than I can. There was a transfer in one of the lot line. It's a lot line change, not a minor subdivision.
This is for the conservation easement?
Yeah, for the conservation easement, so that some septic credits could get moved. And that sort of created some questions in the community about the TDR, are talking about TDRs and why is this allowed versus we can't do it. So it's a county program, and since we don't have anything in place locally, it so supersedes what we do. And so it's a little bit apples and oranges.
They're requesting a variance at the county level. So it's a different animal. And the county already has their program established, whereas we don't. So right now, the only place to do it would be at the county level through this planning board and variance process. So it's different from what we're working on establishing. That's really.
I knew Meg could say it better than I could.
Anything to that?
Yeah, and further, if we do create our own program, we can restrict what development rights can be used for. And again, from what I understand the board wants to do, they want to restrict it exclusively to community housing. So right now, they can go to the county and get development rights for any use they can articulate that's in conforming with zoning or whatever. But, I think that's why it's very important. We have our own TDR program in-house and have full control over it.
And what's the status with that?
Where we need the generic environmental impact statement done. And that's a condition proceeding for us putting a local law to the people for a vote. So we're just waiting for the consultants to do that program.
They're working on it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's an important program that is going to also bleed into comprehensive plan update and the housing plan. So this is
Right. Okay.
But they're focusing on the housing plan.
independent of that.
Yes.
Yes.
Because we need that to get
Yeah.
moving. So they have.
Yeah, but I would like to pressure them a little to just get started on the
Yeah.
GEIS, you know, I
Okay,
mean,
yes, but I
yeah.
think they're working on the housing plan. So you know, for the
Right.
past week and a half, 2 weeks, I think
Yeah.
at this point now.
Yeah. But
With the
their
dialogue.
timelines did include starting
Yeah.
on the GIS along with the.
Right. They're trying to nail down the timeline for the housing and the
Yeah.
meetings for the housing so that they're not in conflict with the meetings for the TDRs and the GIS. So
Yeah.
they're trying to nail down all the timelines before
Yeah,
we.
But I say a little bit of, pressure.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
And I recommend we invite the chair of Chafab come in and give an update on the housing plan, just so residents know where we are in that process.
That's everything. No,
That's it?
not been
Okay.
wordy lately.
Wait, yeah, I thought you were gonna move on. So 10K happened and it was great. It really was. Meg and I were there slinging T-shirts. It was fun. It was a good turnout and, just, may I say, joyful, like, there was no nasty behavior. It was just really, really nice. A kind of a great Shelter Island day, I'd say.
I think people were
And,
happy to be doing something that felt normal.
Exactly. And the national anthem was tear-worthy. I mean, she was Lenore Berner. She has a hyphenated name. Of course, I'm blanking on it, but she just deserves special mention. It was just so beautiful, a cappella rendition. Also, let me just say the comp plan. We haven't had a meeting, but that doesn't mean we haven't been working very diligently on our 4 chapters that are active right now. And they're what I would call, relatively non-controversial or non-chapters. So I just don't want people to think that we aren't at it. We are. July we will have public workshops. I just want to remind people of that to discuss these 4 thus far done chapters. And also in terms of public input, I kind of want to just say that we are seeking input every step of the way, maybe not from the general public, but from the public as they're represented on our volunteer committees, especially. We're just kind of asking those committees to give us input, some more formal than others, some more far-reaching than others, depending on the topic that we're focusing on. But I just want the public to know that that's another avenue by which we are hearing what they think the future of Shelter Island requires.
But we will have official public.
Oh, well, definitely.
Yeah, the goal is to get as much information as possible before it goes to the public at large. So get as much information from the committees that could cover all the concerns before we take it to the public and they're like, well, you missed this entire aspect of
Right.
waterways. We'd really like to make sure it's covered before it gets there so that it is pretty comprehensive when they're looking at it. So the comments can be very practical
Yes.
and really have an impact.
Wrote in.
So
Yeah.
so we don't want to leave anything big out on the draft that goes to the public for review.
Right.
So we're trying to get as much input from committees and from experts that we know around town so that we can, give the public something worthy of their review.
Exactly. It's not time wasted.
Yeah.
So that was it. I mean, that'll happen.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay. Before Jim goes, I just want to back up what BJ said about the 10K. A lot of people take it for granted. They don't realize what a big event it is and how involved it is. And our police department, our highway department, our fire department, our fire police, EMS are out, and the hundreds of volunteers. I mean that to me defines community. I mean, it's just,
And Christina, who
volunteers to run the whole thing.
and
Yeah.
Mary Ellen,
Right. Mhm. No, it's just a great event that, again, sometimes we take for granted. But it's a tremendous amount of work that goes into it. We couldn't do it without all the volunteers that help.
There's a place where we probably could use some new younger blood with the setup and the cleanup. So if there's anybody out there that's maybe under the age of 68 that would like to help next year, please see Christina.
At a beach around the front lawn at 7 a.m. on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm
Practicing his jokes, yeah.
Well, he was working. He was working and we're moving stuff around.
Okay, Jim?
Congratulations, 10K people. Thank you very, very much for a great race. I just grabbed the hold of Brian. I wanted to go over a couple of things. The Capozzi house having it cut, you know, so that we're not going to probably do anything for the next 4, 5, 6 months, but it's got to be maintained. Homeowner's been the grass is over 2 feet high. There's limbs that are down, so he's going to go over and remove it. I said, have you been logging it in? He said, have we cut it before? I said, at least twice. This would be a third time at least in the last 3 years. So you need to be, you know, recording every, you know, the hours we spend over there. We spend 2 guys over there for a couple hours to cut the lawn and clean up. Definitely, you know, log that in. On the West Neck Preserve, I get people that are calling saying, you know, because it is on the periphery of Silver Beach, and they say, what's the story? I mean, it looks so nice and now it's just gone to hell and you can't get on the trail. You have a trail, you can't get out to the trail. And then you have, you know, Tim Patel not wanting anything cut. I guess Gordon, you know, and they're the same group, want to get mowed. I don't care about it getting mowed, but if people have access to the trail. So if you can park your car and just be able to cut just a single thing to get out to the trail is, in fact, because you're not maintaining the property at all, it's just growing right across the trail. There is going to be no trail left come fall. So all the effort that goes into creating that thing is just there. The other thing is the mulch that's just hanging out in the back, the mountain of mulch that is just sitting there and breeding. It's a breeding ground for mosquitoes because there's a pond that's formed naturally right in front of it. So we have these properties, they do have to be maintained.
I know that, with that, just to say, Jim, the CPF went out for, I think, a couple of bids on West Neck Preserve.
Yeah.
And so those were received and were being reviewed.
Okay.
That's a little bit more complicated than normal, I think, because they want to try to make it handicap accessible.
Right.
So I think
Yeah.
that a little, I understand what you're saying, but a little patience, you know,
Yeah, and
they're all working on it.
The intent was, you know, to make, you know, bring it back to a meadow. And, you know,
Yes.
Tim Patel is a purist and he wants to make it exactly what, you know, nature would let it be, where some of us would just like to cut it a couple of times a year and, you know, make it look nice and still have flowers for the butterflies and bees and everything else. So it is an ongoing discussion with the CPF.
Even a meadow needs to be maintained because it'll be reclaimed as deciduous forest if you don't keep it
Yes.
clear.
Yeah, and Tim's been working with some landscapers to see what they can come up with.
I just would like us all on the same sheet of, you know, as opposed to, it seems like at opposite ends of the spectrum, don't touch it versus, you know, mow it every week. I'm not looking for either one of those extremes. Looking for something well in between. All right. We did talk about Shell Beach a little bit, the low groins. It's not going to be, I don't think we've put it in the budget this year for 2023 coming up this coming year, because I think Shell Beach is pretty well situated. We would add a new low groin at the turn on town property where it needs to be better protected. But the major concern, Mr. Supervisor, would be Maples Creek. That bulkhead out there is in poor condition. It's a large bulkhead, almost like Dickinson, you know, bulkhead. It's big. So we need to investigate that. I think he's called Jack Costello to get an estimate on what that would cost. Maybe part of the homeowners association might want to, you know, be included in, you know, trying to secure funds for that eventually. You know, so I think it could be an expensive bulkhead. Maybe Joe should go out and take a look at this with Brian and just to have a future plan. All right, that's just.
Jim, where's Maples Creek?
So one, if
it's down near the South Ferry.
If you parked in the South Ferry parking lot,
It's the one to
In my
the.
head, I'm thinking Silver Beach. I'm like, I don't remember that.
No, just to the west of the thing.
I know what you're talking about.
And the homeowners have that little bit, an access in there. But I've been down to that bulkhead about a year and a half ago, and it was in poor condition at the time. And we've done nothing, with it basically. And it's a fairly big bulkhead. But that's something that, I don't know, with Joe, legally, I don't even know if it's ours, it's theirs, part of the homeowners, I don't know how that stands. So what's our
The
responsibility?
town owns the lot. The homeowners pay to dredge it, and the lot has been expanding with all the dredging being put up there.
Okay,
So
just something that.
ideally,
for the future.
somebody would buy the lot, take it away from us.
That's it for me. I don't have any, no meetings this week.
That's it?
It's a rarity.
Okay. All right. Stephen, you have anything for us?
No, Mr. Supervisor.
Okay, Dottie, anything?
No, thank you.
Okay. Julie?
Fine, thank you very much.
Anybody in the audience? Okay, I'm gonna, oh no, we have to go into a special meeting.
Yeah.
I have undersigned being all the board members of the town of Shelter Island. By way of notice of a special meeting of the town board, town of Shelter Island, consent to be held at 3:20 PM on the 21st day of June, Town Hall, New York. And any and all lawful and necessary business be transacted therein. Okay, so we have two items, I believe, for the special meeting.
I've got 322.
Cozy Lanes first?
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas on June 14th, 2022, the senior building inspector reported to the town board that the dwelling located at 9 Cozy Lane, Shelter Island, New York is unsafe and in violation of several provisions of the New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code. And whereas the subject dwelling has been in a similar condition since at least 2018, and the owner has failed to remedy the situation after previous notice was given. Whereas pursuant to a review of town assessment records, the subject property is owned by William Conroy of 36 Hillside Avenue, South Portland, Maine, and now therefore be it resolved pursuant to section 45-4A, the town board is directing the senior building inspector to ensure that notice is served on William Conroy, notifying him of the unsafe condition that existed 9 Cozy Lane, Shelter Island, New York, along with an order to remediate said conditions within 30 days of service, or a hearing will be conducted to determine whether the town board will take measures to cure the unsafe conditions and charge the costs thereof to Mr. Conroy. So moved.
Second, and a comment, just a comment was that the town attorney had informed the building department to re-inspect property because the previous inspection had been outdated, so to speak.
Mhm.
So we did re-inspect it. This is the need to have to reserve him again and giving him a 30-day notice to remediate. And hopefully we offer some pictures along with that written report so that Mr. Conroy has the ability to actually see some of the damage done to his property and will respond somehow back to us.
Okay.
That's the hope.
We had a second?
Yeah, I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
I have the next one. Whereas Cornell Cooperative Extension of Suffolk County approached the town board to conduct a spat on shell oyster reef restoration, an educational program within the town. And whereas the program requires a 4-foot by 4-foot remote setting tank where oysters can be grown and then released into island waters for the benefit of water quality and habitat improvement. Whereas the town board is desirous of participating in this program and has deemed a certain town-owned property located on Grace's Lane adjacent to Dickerson Creek as a suitable location for said tank. Now therefore be it resolved, the supervisor is authorized to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Cornell Cooperative Extension of Suffolk County to conduct a spat on shell oyster reef restoration program within the town of Shelter Island. So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
whereas
Yep.
Graham Design Home, Christina Pfeffer, 181 North Ferry Road, Shelter Island, New York, has filed an application for an outdoor assembly permit to hold a retail shop grand reopening with featured artists and meet the designer event, June 25th, 2022, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. for approximately 20 to 40 attendees and one vehicle, which will be a tap truck. And whereas said applicant has requested an exemption from the noise ordinance, now therefore be it resolved that said request is hereby granted, subject to the provision of the current insurance as required by town code. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Anybody, any others?
Are we gonna do the public hearing?
Local law.
I thought we were going to, what we're discussing is we need to set the public hearing for video conferencing. As we discussed earlier, we talked about moving the meetings. I think because it is a local law that I think we should do it so that we set the public hearing at the next
10 days notice, so set it up.
So we have the 3 weeks between meetings to allow the public to read and weigh in on this instead of just a week and a half or whatever we have left.
Yeah, which makes sense, like our town code says 3 days, municipal home rule, section 20, says if we say 3 days, 3 days is the minimum. Otherwise they like 5 days, but it's whatever the town board wants to do. So if we, want to put it off for the next town board meeting, that's fine. Or you could, if you wanted to put it on for the next.
And the governor, since a week ago, when we were talking about video conferencing, extended the order until July 14th.
July 14th,
So
so then there will be a period of time where we're not covered by
Right.
video conferencing.
Right.
So why don't we do it
But
today, a
that's all right.
special meeting?
Yeah.
Have the public hearing and then we don't have to close the hearing.
But our next meeting would still be after.
But if we have the public meeting and there's no interest or outcry, then we can have a special meeting the following, get it done.
But it's okay that it's after the date to me because, we'll have a quorum here.
The only thing is a town board member arguably wouldn't be able to
Right.
participate remotely.
Right,
That's the only consequence.
Unless they invite people to wherever they are.
Correct.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean.
It's kind of ridiculous. If I'm in California, I guess give you the address and say, come.
You have to notify it. Like it has to be noticed so many days before the meeting. Is that so many hours before the meeting?
Yes, yeah, you gotta give a heads up. That's again, what we're gonna try to do. So anyway,
What's your recommendation? Do it now or wait?
So all we're doing is setting a public hearing for the ability to have video conferencing, but it's subject to us enacting rules and procedures of video conferencing via resolution.
Mhm.
So it's not really going to be enacted once we have the public hearing and close it and approve it, because we still have to come up with our procedures, which I have a draft for you. I'm going to be disseminated for your review. So we could almost simultaneously, if you agree, but I'd like to put it on for the next work session to discuss. But again, I would, according to our town code and municipal home rule law, we could do it upon 3 days' notice. So we could arguably put it on, set the public hearing today for the 1st.
Or July 1st.
What's your recommendation?
Yes.
That's fine.
Put it on for July 1st.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's any.
All right, you want to read it, Meg? Is it really long?
Yeah.
It's only
Is
3.
there a summary?
There is, yeah.
I like summaries. I have.
Do you want me to read the first section and then I'll read the, okay. Notice of public hearing to consider a local law creating a new town code chapter, chapter 2 entitled video conferencing to allow members of the public bodies of the town to participate in meetings via video conference. Be resolved that the town board of the town of Shelter Island hereby directs that a public hearing shall be held on Friday, July 1st, 2022, to hear any and all persons either for or against a local law entitled a local law creating a new town code chapter 2 entitled video conferencing to allow members of the public bodies of the town participate in meetings via video conference, which the purpose of the local law is to maintain the use of video conferencing technology introduced during the pandemic in order to expand public participation among all of the different layers of town government, while also ensuring direct in-person access to town officials. So that's what it's all about.
One thing here, logistic, this be able to be put in the paper before the 1st? Sure.
It would come out on the 30th.
Yeah.
It would come out
Too late for this week, so it wouldn't come out till June 30th for July 1st meeting.
So then there wouldn't really be 3 days' notice. So
That's what we were,
yeah, so I would just amend it to the following date, July.
When is that one?
20, Second.
So July
26th.
22nd, 26th is the next
Did
board
we
meeting?
The
change?
22nd.
Is that on your new schedule?
On the new schedule.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so to July 22nd.
20.
Yeah, the 22nd becomes. I see it right
Twenty-second
there.
goes to the 26th.
Sorry.
Yeah, goes to Tuesday, the 26th.
Gotcha, Dot. So we're going to the 26th.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to amend this to have the public hearing on July 26th,
Tuesday.
Tuesday, July
What time of
26th.
day? What time of day?
6:30.
6:30?
6, no, because the meeting's at 6, so you gotta,
Oh, 6:20.
Okay.
6:20, she says.
20 at 6:15.
July 22nd, 20 PM. 26, I'm so sorry, I keep doing that. That is all on me. 26th, 6:20 PM. Do you hear anyone in favor or in opposition to video conferencing? So moved.
second. All those in favor?
Do we have to do anything about the calendar?
Yes, we're gonna have to have a reso on for the first, changing date, amending the organizational resolution to change the dates.
Okay.
He's on there.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay. There's nobody.
I will do that.
Motion, we
Thank you.
Thanks, Dot.
adjourn the special meeting, adjourn the work session, and say goodbye. Thank you, everybody.
All in favor?
Aye.
Kelly.